Mr. Valentine Part 7, a 14-part Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction released in the month of February. If you haven't already, make sure you've subscribed to this channel to stay up to date on the latest parts of your favorite fanfictions. You can find links to the previous 6 parts of this story in the description box. February 8th. Marinette woke up feeling sick to her stomach. She'd have to talk to Adrien again. They had plans to meet at a coffee shop, but she hadn't spoken to him since after class yesterday. He'd sent her a couple of texts the night before that she'd responded to politely, but nothing more. She sat up and ran her fingers through her hair, catching them on an elastic and realizing she hadn't let her hair down last night. She groaned and made her way downstairs for a shower, wishing she had a little more sleep to fuel her. "Good morning, darling," her mother said. "Good morning, Mom. Dad?" Marinette managed to say while yawning. "Any plans for the day?" "Not too many. I'm spending some time with Adrien this afternoon." "What about this gentleman here?" Marinette turned to see her mother pointing to the kitchen table with a spatula. Her eyes followed the line of sight until she saw Cat Noir smiling smugly. "Sup?" he said, fully aware of her surprise. It took every ounce of self-restraint not to roll her eyes. She didn't have to say anything for him to understand what her body language was conveying. "I'm going to take a shower," Marinette said flatly, turning away. "I'll be here when you're done!" Usually her thoughts would be racing as she stood under the shower, but as cold water cascaded down her shoulders, Marinette found herself unusually calm. It was okay. Life was okay. She was okay. "I always knew you were a stray," Marinette said, rubbing her hair between a towel as she sat down across from Cat Noir. "What can I say? I like bread." He held up a Dupang Chang-provided roll and patted his stomach. "Bread makes you fat." "Then let us eat cake!" She rolled her eyes and grabbed 2 mugs from the cupboard. "Milk?" she asked, looking over her shoulder. "Warm or cold?" "A cold cup would be great, thanks." Marinette poured the drink, adding a little honey to hers before sticking it in the microwave. "You like yours sweet?" Cat said, accepting his cup from her. "Yeah, it's a small comfort." "Huh. I guess I never thought to add honey to warm milk." "I think warm milk by itself is gross." "That's fair." "So what did I do this time?" Marinette asked, grabbing her drink from the beeping microwave. "What do you mean?" "Why are you gracing us with your presence, Mr. Superhero?" There was more than a hint of sarcasm in her tone, but she was genuinely curious. "Well, I'd like to finish that TV show, for starters." "Be serious." He looked over his shoulder to see Sabine and Tom in the living room and lowered his voice. "I wanted to check on you, that's all." "Why?" "What do you mean?" "Why me? You're a superhero. I'm a civilian. What sparked this? Do you know me?" Marinette knew she should have held the last question on her tongue, but she was curious. Did this break the rules? Probably. Then again, there are many shades of gray. "You didn't seem stellar when I saw you the other night." "It was 3 in the morning, Cat." "Touché." He took a sip and set his cup down. "Well then, I should probably get going. I'm sure you have plans today." Yeah, in the afternoon. Best of luck then. She smiled at him as he got up and exchanged goodbyes with her parents, going back to her room only after Cat Noir left the building. While his visit was a bit uncalled for, Marinette knew that his thoughtfulness was one of the many reasons she appreciated having him as a partner. Of all the people who could have gotten the Black Cat miraculous, he filled the role best. It was hard to imagine working with a stiff or grumpy Cat Noir, a different Cat Noir, or even a guy who didn't have a backbone. Not that Cat Noir had to be a boy. A different boy stood in her family's kitchen a few hours later, leaning slightly backward with his hands in his pockets while making small talk with her father. Marinette felt a little embarrassed to see Adrien after yesterday, but the show must go on. "Ready to go?" she asked, grabbing her purse from a chair as she walked into the room. Although she wasn't sure, Marinette could have sworn she saw his eyes widen and his smile crack. Adrien still wore his model smile while saying goodbye to her father, but he kept glancing her way. Was it what she was wearing? Ankle booties, overalls, and a white shirt paired with a cap wasn't eye-catching, but she thought it was cute enough for candids. She thought her makeup was okay as well. He took her hand once they stepped out of the building, and Marinette realized Adrien's palms were sweating. It was still chilly outside, a typical day in February, and her home wasn't all too warm. Was he nervous? Why? They walked in silence, Marinette trailing slightly behind him. She could tell his pace was a bit slower, trying to match hers, but he still held off a step or two now and then until she caught up. If she had to confess, Marinette was trailing behind on purpose. She didn't want to walk next to Adrien Agreste today. "Hey." Adrien stopped in his tracks, not turning to look at her. "Yes?" she replied. Her body faced forward, and, for a moment, they were just two teenagers holding hands on a sidewalk in Paris. "Let's stop this." Her first instinct was to fight his words, deny the meaning behind it, but she just stood there. Marinette stood there, tasting the melancholy mood in the air, and agreed with him. She failed. She failed, not because she wasn't worthy of being someone's girlfriend, but because she knew that treating a girl sweetly while longing for another was killing him the same way the small dates and photos killed her inside. He might have been able to keep it to himself, but finding out she wasn't happy was probably the straw that broke the camel's back. As much as she idolized how responsible Adrien could be, this was too much, even for his acting skills. She couldn't read his mind, but Marinette guessed that he'd rather deal with being single for Valentine's Day than have two lonely hearts. She sighed, wishing she hadn't ruined what may be her only chance. "Okay." Her voice was soft, and she felt one of Adrien's fingers twitch in her hand. They still hadn't looked at the other, and as Marinette finally opened her mouth to tell him she'd see herself home, Adrien began to talk. "I'm sorry," he confessed. "And thank you." She held onto his hand as he tried to slip it out. "One condition." "Yes?" "You ask that girl out." He sighed and turned back to look at her. "I can't do that." "Why? Because you're the son of Gabriel Agreste?" "I can't show all sides of myself in front of her." "So?" "So I can't be with her." Marinette lowered her head a bit, now looking at the ground. "Just ask her. You're Adrien Agreste! Go wash your hair and ask the girl out!" She didn't realize how loud her voice grew as she talked, but Marinette soon had to calm herself down as she let go of Adrien's hand to wipe her now sweaty one on the denim of her overalls. Surprisingly, it didn't kill her to say it. It was a relief, if anything. Unsure if her stone-calm face was a facade or not, Marinette turned to leave, detouring through an alley she used to transform into Ladybug during Akuma fights. She didn't want to go back too early and worry her parents, after all, so perhaps doing some service with a mask on was fitting for her newly found time. That, and she could check in on Adrien while she was out. Did she want to check on Adrien? Probably not, but something told her she should. Before she knew it, Ladybug was leaping from rooftop to rooftop, illuminated by sunlight as she made her way to the Agreste Manor the second time that week. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears as she perched on the windowsill, peering into the unsupervised teenage boy's room. Adrien wasn't back yet, but that's okay. Ladybug had a few hours to wait. All she needed to do was wait. She'd see the boy soon enough, both with and without the mask. After all, she wasn't in home territory anymore. Thank you so much for listening. Part 8 will be released shortly. In the meantime, you can check out these other videos for more fanfiction. I'll catch you next time.